So to be real with you, I don't really think there's anything that's going to be said that you two are not already aware of by not only me, but anyone. But perhaps there's a couple of little slices of info that you haven't really sunk into, so to speak. But really, does the UFC even need stars, right? We'll start with the most shallow and obvious of them all. The answer is no. The answer is no at all. And I did see the disappointment that Pereira did not win. I saw even lines, even like Helwani saying that it is a nightmare situation for the UFC, and I just plainly disagree. It's not that I am not a fan that wants some more stars, characters, big names, etc. It's more so that the UFC isn't going to contribute to making anybody a star, at least from what I can tell. They will contribute to pushing somebody to be a champion from a country they want to expand or open market in. But at this point, the UFC has no need for a larger than life star. This is gonna keep running the exact same. I see people online complaining about the fights this weekend. Fine, but it's not gonna change anything in the grand scheme of things for the UFC for the year of 2025, right? The second thing that comes to my mind is what TKO is going to be looking like in 5 to 10 years. And how I'm envisioning it, which I could definitely be wrong, but I just see them being this one giant circus type of thing going from city to city, state to state, country to country, continent to continent. I know I have to do gigs in Mesa, Arizona annually, and there's this giant festival, or not festival, this giant gathering of athletes from different high schools and sports that just take this giant piece of land that has all the fields and the things you need for these sports and matches and games to go on. And then I think of something like the Olympics, and not that TKO is going to be as big or as worldly as the Olympics, in my opinion, in 5 to 10 years, but this giant area of different sports: jiu-jitsu, wrestling, bull riding, boxing, MMA, and there's probably going to be more too. So when you have something like that, it's an amalgamation of not only quote unquote the stars or the athletes or performers, but it's also just the experience, the spectacle of it all, right? It's more like of going to a play for The Lion King on Broadway, or over here at UNM at the Pope Joy Hall. I've never gone to a play looking for a specific performer out of it, right? The other thing is probably the attention span of the new generation that is being a little bit overlooked here. I have nieces and they are in the ages of 14, 17, along with all their friends. They could not name me a single UFC fighter active right now. Definitely not a champion. If I bring up John Jones, that name might sound familiar. Of course, the person that I don't bring up on my channel anymore would be known. Ronda Rousey would be known, and that's a big maybe even. You know, and the only reason that Jones and the other guy is known is for the negative aspects of them, because the younger generation is intrigued by faults, by fuck-ups. You look further at like IRL streamers, you look at the deal with Johnny Somali in Korea, people of that demographic can't get enough of that. It's not because he is a star or what he does is good, it's because they can't get enough of the, oh my god, what a fuck-up. The most attention, as an example, John Jones has gotten in this quote-unquote new era is what he's done outside of the octagon. Problem is that the youth can get these little dopamine spikes they're seeking in the form of people elsewhere that isn't them or related to them fucking up in real life, especially popular people. And that goes down to streamers or to the podcasters interviewing these fighters or fighters themselves or football players or boxers or e-girls or Twitch streamers and shit like that. It is a turning content of like dopamine addiction, and it's why to some extent, on some level, no matter how any of us feel about it, power slap is still a thing. Right? We can say, oh, how could you watch this or whatever, but it's like seeing somebody go mess up on a backflip on a dirt bike, or racking themselves when they're trying to do a 50-50 grind on some pole at a high school. You know, something, it's the same effect that they're seeking. They're not looking for people to look up to, because the people they look up to are the people that try to make fun of the big names, the important people. And this goes in music as well. Hip hop culture is the same way. People no longer care about like the rappers themselves, you know, just the hot takes and the negative energy that they can get off of it, because it's the culture that we're in that has them built this way. But you also have to take into account incel culture and the very, very delusional sense of entitlement with this demographic. You can see it all over X. I'm sure you guys are not unaware. People talk about fighters. People are saying the UFC is no good because of who the champions are, right? But the thing is, the champions are champions because they beat the people that they like. And this wears thin on them very quickly. Sean O'Malley, Sean Strickland, and even Hamzat Chimaev, right? Like these, Dricus Duplessis, Adesanya, these are just spokes on the wheel, man. And I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know, but they're spokes on the wheel, not in like, oh, our informed ways of seeing how the UFC works, but also in the form of willful ignorance amongst the younger generation. It doesn't matter who they put out there, right? They're not gonna be a star. They're not gonna be a star at all, because the UFC doesn't want that, right? It's also limited to how you can build a star. They tried it with Sean O'Malley. Remember 13 to number 2, and then to headline Noche with Marab and lose. Mackenzie Dern. They tried to force Mackenzie Dern down our throats, and now she's all at the point where she might get a title shot. But at this point, the wool is no longer over the sheep's eyes. Mackenzie is not known for elite fighting. In fact, she's rather memed on. She's more known for weigh-in pictures and bikini pictures and stuff. And I mean, it's a brutal truth, but this is what it is. If she becomes a champion, incels will praise her, but she's not gonna be a star. She's not gonna be that type of star. But this is all layered, right? Identity association in the West with the youth is more about the takes and how you analyze and how much you can make them laugh, as opposed to the athletes themselves. That doesn't go for everybody, obviously, but that is the biggest portion of the audience. It's why Dana White has the Tate brothers there. You know what I mean? Because these are the people that do not care about the quote-unquote nightmare situation of Alex Pereira losing the title. Big whoop, dude. In the bigger picture, big whoop, you know? And I just think it's glaring all of us in the eyes very clearly. Outside of the idea of TKO and what they're wanting to do and what is likely going to happen, the UFC has learned. The UFC has learned, and they got out squeaky clean with the antitrust settlement, right? And it's also why Dana wants to get rid of the media, and it's gonna be nothing but influencers. The same thing will happen with TKO boxing too. And the same thing will happen with the jiu-jitsu. Also, so you guys know, the same thing will happen with the WWE. The WWE, now being a part of TKO, has completely taken the model of the UFC. Pretty soon, there will be no alternative, right? People want to say AEW is not a competitor, it's an alternative. Well, the only way that they're going to stay above water in 5 to 10 years is if they start doing some type of crossover with WWE. WWE now has the Neil next in line, Evolve, LFG. They also have NXT to pull from. And these are all basically just tough and contender series and Cage Warriors and some aspect Strike Force like NWA and TNA eventually just being absorbed into it. This is what it is, right? Because this model has been proven with the UFC, TKO knows they can do it and replicate it with the rest of what their interests are, which is WWE, boxing, jiu-jitsu, and probably some other stuff. So in summary, the UFC, they don't need stars. They have the control. They have the dollar. In 5 to 10 years, TKO is just gonna be like BioShock Infinite Columbia Sky City, just basically a giant city of athletes and performers going place to place. Not many people that are under the age of 25 keep long attention spans and focus, especially when it comes to something like MMA. And also remember, this is all how insecure incel culture is, and our youth. male, female, gay, straight, does not matter, how aggressive and how staunch we can all be, including you guys, you know? Like, it still does rub people the wrong way when they're called names, no matter what side of whatever aisle. I don't know what the aisle is, but there's a lot of vitriol, hatred going both directions, you know? Everybody's spitting in each other's face. Kids don't want to necessarily be a part of that. They want to witness it from afar. But they're more popular than ever because they like seeing people get knocked out, and they like asses and titties. Nalgazi chichis, Mr. Thomas. The identity association with the youth is more to content creators and influencers more than ever. It's actually a problem if you ask me. The fighters themselves are not, which is why fighters on podcasts and whatnot just get ribbed on all the time. No one's looking up to them in that way. Building stars, the UFC can't do because of the realities of the business, of the job itself. In WWE, you can build stars. Someone can get injured or sick or pregnant, and you can write that into the script and determine these outcomes. You cannot do this in the UFC. And even with the WWE right now, the stars are being very much more toned back a little bit. You look at people that are loved, like Io Sky, Roman Reigns, Rhea Ripley. They're just kind of all over the place, and they're pushing their brands, but what they're pushing more is the WWE. That is what the point is. And finally, I think the UFC has just learned from the other big names that have came across that tried to leverage, that asked for shares, that asked for a piece of the company instead of just big performance paychecks. This all encompasses what the TKO Group knows. Therefore, the stars issue is only for the hardcore and focused fans, casual focused, hardcore focused. That doesn't hurt the bottom line. Therefore, to the UFC, it doesn't matter. Tell me what you think. Maybe I'm full of shit. Maybe someone has a better opinion than me. May all your gains be loyal.
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.